CJ Flyer back with another YouTube video. Today giving you an update to the college basketball dynasty mode in NBA 2K26. Now if you're new to the channel, a few months ago I created a video called How to Play College Basketball Dynasty Mode in NBA 2K26. And in that video I shared a MyNBA scenario file that included 30 college basketball teams with the team branding already included, showing how to play multiple seasons with high school recruits and a transfer portal included. In that video, I also asked for user feedback on how to improve the mode for a version 2. And so in this video, I will be going over all of that user feedback, addressing the comments from that video, as well as giving some guidelines on how to set up version 2 of college basketball dynasty mode in NBA 2K26. Now, as you might expect, one of the most common requests that was given was, of course, to add more teams to choose from beyond the 30 that were included in that scenario file. At the time of making that video, there were not many college basketball rosters available, and of the ones that were available, there were not that many teams included. However, leading up to March Madness, some other users had started to create more rosters of various teams, and so I went ahead and took one that was created by Spliffem123. And in addition to those rosters included, I also added Nebraska, which gives us over 50 schools to choose from for Dynasty version 2. I will leave a pinned comment down below with the roster key so that you know which NBA team is associated with which college basketball program. With that all being said, if you want to choose which teams you'd like to use, of course, you're going to have to set up your own MyNBA file. You can't just simply download a MyNBA scenario file. Also keep in mind that MyNBA only allows a maximum of 36 teams, so you're only going to be able to have a maximum of 36 schools for your dynasty mode. Now, as I continue to go over the feedback that was given for Dynasty version 1, I'm going to share on screen screenshots of the settings and league rules that you need to set for Dynasty version 2 when creating this MyNBA file from scratch. So go ahead at any moment and pause the video as you need to change the settings on your MyNBA file as you follow along in setting up Dynasty version 2. As those settings are being shown on screen, I am going to talk about some of the other feedback from Dynasty version 1. Another comment that was left on the Dynasty version 1 video was to make sure that nicknames varied amongst the players, as some of the college basketball players didn't have their name in 2K's built-in voice directory, so naturally when 2K does not have a player's name available in their voice directory, they usually default to referring to that player by their nickname. Unfortunately, with the way that 2K's roster editor and creator works, when you go to create a player, you can edit the nickname. But once you've created that player and injected them into a roster, in the roster editor, when you go to edit a player, that option to edit a player's nickname is no longer available. I don't know why this would be the case. This is something that I believe 2K should fix for future versions of MyNBA mode in future installments of NBA 2K. But unfortunately, as far as I'm able to tell, when I went to edit the rosters myself within MyNBA mode or within the roster editor feature from the main menu, I was not able to edit the nickname, so unfortunately that is just up to the roster creator themselves, the person that initially created the players for said rosters. If they didn't vary the nicknames then, they're not going to be varied when you go ahead and play with them. I apologize, this is just an unfortunate situation that we'd have to deal with. I also got a couple comments asking about changing jersey numbers and how some of the players' jersey numbers were not as they were in real life. And that, of course, is because of NBA teams retiring jersey numbers, and that is something that can be undone. So I have not back-checked this set of rosters here. However, if you do come across a player and their jersey number is not correct and you want to correct it, all you have to do is go into the navigation menu in MyNBA, go to League News, go to the history of the league, and then team by team, you could go ahead and manually select to unretire numbers. One comment had mentioned seeding the tournament teams by the top 16 teams based on record, irrespective of conference. And so I went ahead and made that rule change Previously, it was set up so that the division winners would automatically get into the tournament with the intention of treating the divisions as conferences. So as in real life, when you have the SEC champion automatically make the tournament, you have the Big Ten champion automatically make the tournament, so on and so forth. The idea was that the division winners automatically make the tournament because they won their division, aka their conference. But apparently that also made it happen so that there were only the top 8 teams from each conference making it into the playoffs rather than the top 16, irrespective of conference standing. And so we've changed that. So it's just the top 16 teams across the board making it into the March Madness tournament every year. Someone else in the comments had asked about salary cap flexibility and possibly removing the salary cap or the hard cap in order to have a dynasty built up in your dynasty mode, to have no limitations as far as the players that you would like to sign. You could have a starting 5 of one and done players that are going to be, top 5, top 10 picks in the NBA draft. By all means, you are able to manually change that if you wish. If you go to the settings and go to tuning sliders and the contract tuning sliders, you can turn salary cap and hard cap off at any time. I still recommend having it on just to have some kind of barrier so that, it's not just easy to blow through every single team, just to have a little bit of competition, a little bit of a challenge. It's totally up to you how you want to play it. There is that freedom to make the change as you wish. Now, one of the biggest challenges in setting up Dynasty Mode in version 1 was being able to have players automatically removed from the rosters once they finished their senior season, or if they were one and done players. Unfortunately, I was not able to determine a way to do this in Dynasty version 1, and that is pretty much the case in Dynasty version 2. I did get a comment asking, had I tried setting the player's peak age to 19 or 20 years old so that regression starts strong. There's a couple problems with that. One, if you start their regression in their freshman or sophomore year and you set the regression in such a way that all of the ratings just completely drop off, it still takes at least 2 seasons for the player to become bad enough that an NBA team doesn't want them on their roster. And with that, it really wouldn't make sense to have a freshman who was an adequate player or even like a really good player to then just completely drop off by their senior season. You would not have a single player get better from their freshman year to their senior year. So setting the regression like that early on, even though eventually they would get worse and they would, not be able to make an NBA roster by maybe year 3, it's still not very helpful in regards to the immersion for the college basketball experience. So we are still sticking with the typical way of doing it from Dynasty version 1, where at the start of each season, any player that's a senior, aka 22 years old, and any player that is, this time we're changing it up a bit, the ratings have been adjusted for these rosters. So instead of players being at 99 overall at the highest, they are now capped around a 94 to start. And so any player that is an 85 overall or higher should have their age manually set to 40 years old at the start of the season. And the assumption is that by the end of the season, once you get to the retirement section of the offseason, that they will decide to retire. And of course, if they do not decide to retire, follow the same process as in Dynasty version 1 and edit their ratings so that the player is around a 50 overall or lower. If you have no idea what I'm talking about and haven't watched the Dynasty version 1 video, watch that video now. I go through exactly how to do the high school recruiting, how to do the transfer portal, and how to graduate seniors and send one and dones on their way to the NBA manually. Unfortunately, it is a manual process. It is a little bit tedious, but it doesn't take more than an hour to do every single season. Now, one of the biggest requests I got in the Dynasty version 1 video was asking if this can be played online. Now, technically yes, but also no, and I'll explain why. So there was actually a comment in here that alluded to what I'm about to talk about. You can set this up to play with friends online with the college basketball rosters. You can manipulate the different settings, similar to how you can offline. However, you can only edit uniforms and team branding for the teams that are user controlled. So if you only have 3 or 4 friends and you're playing an online college basketball dynasty mode with 30 schools, You can only change the team branding for those 3 or 4 user teams, and the rest of the dynasty is going to be completely, they're going to be college basketball rosters, but they're going to have NBA jerseys and NBA arenas. And you can only change it if those teams are also user controlled. So unless anyone watching this video has, 29 other friends that they'd all like to play an online college basketball dynasty with, then playing this online with just 1 or 2 friends, it's not going to work out very well for you unless you can look over the fact that all of these rosters have NBA branding. Alright, so that covers most of the feedback that was given on the Dynasty version 1 video. As I previously stated, the process of recruiting high school recruits, manually graduating players, and sending one and done players to the NBA, in addition to going through the transfer portal, all of that is the same exact process, with exception to the fact that you instead will remove players that are 85 overall or higher. Now, if you don't feel like going through the process of setting up your own MyNBA file, I did go ahead and upload a scenario file that is labeled Dynasty version 2. This scenario file includes 36 different schools, those schools in alphabetical order being Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, BYU, Clemson, Creighton, Duke, Florida, Georgetown, Houston, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, Miami, Michigan, Michigan State, NC State, Nebraska, North Carolina, Oregon, Purdue, St. John's, Syracuse, Tennessee, Texas, Texas Tech, UCLA, UConn, USC, Washington, Wisconsin, and Xavier. And so that'll leave out the remaining schools that are available on the rosters, which are Auburn, Baylor, Cal, Cincinnati, Colorado, Florida State, Georgia, Gonzaga, LSU, Maryland, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Penn State, Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. Again, that's over 50 schools. They'll be in a pinned comment with the associated NBA team on the rosters. And of course, one last thing to note, once you have set up your own MyNBA file, if you're not going to use the scenario file that I've shared, perhaps you want to include LSU in your dynasty or one of the other schools that I mentioned that were not included in the scenario file for version 2. You will need to manually set the team branding for that team. It's going to require you to go ahead and download a team design from the 2K Share or create one from scratch. In some cases, when you go to search for a specific school's team branding that's been uploaded to 2K Share, you can search by the school name, and in other cases, you might need to search for the mascot name instead. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and I will do my best to answer them. If you need to refer back to the Dynasty version 1 video on how to do the transfer portal, how to graduate players, etc., click the video on your screen now.